The first 48 hours, a nation under siege, the war in Ukraine. Imagine a world where the dawn breaks not with the promise of a new day, but with the chilling reality of war. This is the story of the first 48 hours of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a period that reshaped the geopolitical landscape and plunged a nation into chaos. The invasion began on February 24, 2022, with a multi-pronged attack. Russia's initial objective was clear: to cripple Ukraine's military capabilities and destabilize its government. This was a calculated move to seize key strategic locations with speed and precision. The strategy involved a coordinated assault across multiple fronts. The aim was to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses and achieve a swift victory. This initial phase was crucial for Russia's overall war plan. A barrage of missile strikes and air attacks rained down on Ukraine. These attacks targeted critical infrastructure, including military airfields and command centers. The goal was to neutralize Ukraine's ability to respond effectively. Kyiv, the capital city, was a primary target. The attacks aimed to disrupt government operations and demoralize the population. The scale and intensity of the aerial assault were unprecedented. Ground forces advanced towards Kyiv from the north. Columns of tanks and armored vehicles poured across the border. The northern front represented a direct threat to the heart of Ukraine. The objective was to encircle Kyiv and potentially depose the government. This would pave the way for installing a pro-Russian regime. The speed of the advance was critical to their plan. On the eastern front, Russian forces pushed out of Donetsk and Luhansk. These regions had been under separatist control since 2014. The invasion aimed to expand Russian control and solidify its presence in eastern Ukraine. The objective was to link up with forces advancing from the south. This would create a land bridge and further isolate Ukraine. The Eastern Front was a key component of Russia's territorial ambitions. A rapid advance unfolded from the Crimean Peninsula in the south. Russian forces aimed to seize key areas, including the Kherson region. This would secure access to vital waterways and strategic locations. The southern front was crucial for controlling access to the Black Sea. It also aimed to cut off Ukraine from its southern ports. The speed of the advance was a significant factor in the early stages. Despite facing an overwhelming force, Ukrainian resistance was fierce. A combination of conventional tactics and guerrilla warfare was employed. The Ukrainian military and civilian volunteers fought with determination. Anti-tank weapons, such as Javelin missiles, proved highly effective. They inflicted heavy losses on Russian armored columns. This slowed the Russian advance and disrupted their plans. Ukrainian air defenses managed to shoot down some Russian aircraft. This limited Russia's air superiority and provided a morale boost. The resistance demonstrated the resolve of the Ukrainian people. Intense fighting erupted outside Kyiv at Hostomel Airport. This strategic location was crucial for Russia's plan to quickly seize the capital. Ukrainian forces fiercely defended the airport. Ukrainian forces delayed Russian attempts to secure the airfield. This prevented Russia from using it as a staging ground for an assault on Kyiv. The battle for Hostomel Airport was a pivotal moment. On the eastern front, Ukrainian forces held their positions. They prevented a rapid Russian breakthrough. This resistance bought valuable time for Ukraine to mobilize its defenses. The defense of key cities in the east was crucial. It disrupted Russia's plans to quickly consolidate control. The resilience of Ukrainian forces was evident. The capture of Kherson marked a significant early victory for Russia. This strategic city provided access to vital infrastructure. However, Ukrainian resistance continued even after the city fell. The loss of Kherson was a setback for Ukraine. It highlighted the challenges of defending against a superior force. The fight for the south remained a critical battleground. The invasion triggered a massive humanitarian crisis. Millions of Ukrainians sought refuge, fleeing the fighting and seeking safety in neighboring countries. The scale of displacement was staggering. Families were torn apart and communities were shattered. The humanitarian impact of the war was devastating. The world watched in horror as the crisis unfolded. The international community condemned the invasion. Sanctions were imposed on Russia, targeting its economy and key individuals. The global response aimed to isolate Russia and pressure it to end the war. Military and financial aid was provided to Ukraine. This support helped Ukraine defend itself against the Russian aggression. The international community stood in solidarity with Ukraine. The first 48 hours set the stage for a protracted and brutal conflict. The outcome remained uncertain, with high stakes for Ukraine and the wider world. The invasion had far-reaching consequences. The war in Ukraine reshaped the geopolitical landscape. It challenged the existing world order and raised fundamental questions about security and sovereignty. The impact of these first 48 hours continues to be felt today. The initial days of the war revealed the strategic objectives of Russia, the resilience of the Ukrainian people, and the complex dynamics of international relations. Understanding these early moments is crucial for analyzing the ongoing conflict and its potential outcomes. The first 48 hours of the war in Ukraine were a crucible, forging a new reality for the nation and the world. The events of those days continue to shape the conflict and its global implications. The invasion of Ukraine was a watershed moment in modern history. The first 48 hours were a critical period that defined the trajectory of the war. The world watched as a nation fought for its survival. The initial days of the war were marked by intense fighting, widespread destruction, and a growing humanitarian crisis. The events of those days continue to resonate as the conflict drags on. The first 48 hours of the war in Ukraine were a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict. The images of destruction and displacement shocked the world. The war continues to be a tragedy for the Ukrainian people. The invasion of Ukraine was a violation of international law and a threat to global security. The first 48 hours were a critical period that set the stage for a long and difficult conflict. The world must continue to support Ukraine in its fight for freedom. The initial days of the war revealed the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian people. Despite facing overwhelming odds, they fought bravely to defend their country. Their courage inspired the world. The first 48 hours of the war in Ukraine were a turning point in history. The events of those days will be studied for years to come. The war continues to be a major challenge for the international community. The invasion of Ukraine was a wake-up call for the world. The first 48 hours were a stark reminder of the dangers of aggression and the importance of defending democracy. The world must stand united against tyranny. The initial days of the war were marked by a rapid escalation of violence. The events of those days continue to shape the conflict and its global implications. The world must work together to find a peaceful resolution. The first 48 hours of the war in Ukraine were a time of great uncertainty and fear. The events of those days will never be forgotten. The war continues to be a source of pain and suffering for the Ukrainian people. The invasion of Ukraine was a crime against humanity. The first 48 hours were a critical period that set the stage for a long and difficult conflict. The perpetrators of this aggression must be held accountable. The initial days of the war revealed the importance of international cooperation. The events of those days continue to shape the global response to the conflict. The world must work together to support Ukraine and promote peace. The first 48 hours of the war in Ukraine were a test of the international community's resolve. The events of those days will be remembered as a time of great challenge and opportunity. The world must rise to the occasion and build a more just and peaceful world. The first 48 hours of the war in Ukraine were a pivotal moment in history, setting the stage for a conflict with far-reaching consequences. To truly understand the complexities of this ongoing crisis, delve deeper into the analysis, research the key players, and stay informed through reputable news sources. Share this video to raise awareness and encourage critical thinking about the geopolitical landscape. Consider supporting humanitarian organizations, providing aid to Ukraine, and advocating for diplomatic solutions to end the conflict. Your informed action can make a difference.